Spam king Sanford Wallace has been sentenced to 30 months in prison. This is after years of spamming beginning in the 90s. Spamford, as he has become known, he sent so much spam that companies like AOL and CompuServe filed suits against him. And this 30-month sentence is the result of the latest of his indictments, which is contempt of court. So this guy, Sanford Wallace, is a fascinating character. Spam king. Okay, so he is currently 47 years old. He rose to prominence in the 90s. He had a company called Cyber Promotions, and he would start by spamming fax machines. He then later moved on to email. A lot of his opponents, once they discovered his game, they referred to him as Spamford, which he later embraced. And actually, you know, he trademarked that, I guess. But so it got to the point where he was sending so much spam. As I said, AOL, CompuServe, they were trying to file suits against him. At the time that this was going on, there weren't any anti-spam laws. So it wasn't until 1991 when the federal law actually banned spamming that he kind of, at first it looked like he was going to retire from this, but then he eventually turned to malware and he was just spamming people, man. Okay, so we'll get into some of the details, but like before we get like, someone referred to as the Spam King. What do we think?
Okay, he had a brief stint as a nightclub DJ as well, right? He got screwed over in the spam game, and then he left that, and then became like, what was his DJ name? DJ Turbo
Master
Spam?
Web. He would spin on the weekends.
Right.
Yeah.
Spam on the weekdays.
Jack of all trades, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, interesting guy, I guess, but screw this guy. He's wasted so many megabytes into my mailboxes that I don't like him.
Right, exactly. So what's interesting is, so Ars Technica, they did a really fascinating profile on this guy back in 2003. But just to give you an idea, so he would, in 2007, he was sued by MySpace for $230 million because what he'd been doing is he would be phishing for people's account logins. He would trick people into clicking because it would look like people's friends were sending them things. We've seen this. Like, it looks like it's a friend, but then you're like, dang it, spam. So it would look like Easter e-cards that if the recipients clicked, it would say, oh, do you want to forward this to a friend? If so, enter your logins. And so, you know, it would look like a MySpace page, but then they would add their account, they would add their info, and then he would add it to a database and basically just sell that information to any website that was willing to pay, whether that be like online sex sites or anything really. And through that, he was able to make over $500,000. So later, once MySpace got into the mix, he moved on to Facebook, and so he gained access to 500,000 accounts. He sent 27 million messages over the course of 5 months, and then Facebook later sued and was supposed to be awarded $711 million in damages.
And he's been banned from Facebook altogether now, as I understand, and he owes nearly $1 billion in fines and judgments. But yeah, it's very interesting to understand how it all works and how they make money off of this spamming. You know, I just have to wonder who's more hated, him or a traffic warden.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, so
especially because he's selling off your info, you know, and making money off of other people's stuff that he stole.
Right, and so it was in 2004 that the Federal Trade Commission, they wanted him to halt this spam bot that he had made. In 2011, he finally was indicted for contempt of court, and this is because even though he'd been banned from Facebook, he was still using it. It's almost like this profile that I read, it looked like he had like a Facebook or like spamming addiction. Like he's like, I must spam, gotta do it. Finally he pled guilty in 2015 after all of this evasion, after all of not either coming to court without lawyers or any documents or not showing up at all, like people weren't able to get in touch with him. He finally pleaded guilty though, and he is sentenced to 30 months in prison. He has to face a 5-year probation and then pay $310,000 in restitution.
I wonder what's worse, online spam addiction or like a real spam addiction, like the food spam?
Yeah, that'll probably give you some serious sodium
Both are pretty
issues.
bad.
Yeah.
Both are pretty bad. Joy.
Well, and one more thing I just have to point out is throughout all of this, again, this guy is such a fascinating character study because in certain situations when he wouldn't show up to court or whatever, he had this to say in his defense for one of his first testimonies. He says, let me just state for the record that I am chronically disorganized, and that's one of the reasons it's so difficult to communicate with me. And some of the things that would appear to the normal person to be uncooperative, it's actually possible and very often related to the fact that I'm a very disorganized person. I think you'll see that as we continue this conversation, that as a lot of documents haven't been filed or organized in a very efficient manner by myself, I want to just state for the record that that is something that I could probably have a psychiatrist to verify if I had to. Right?
If I called Sanford and I was like, yo, Sanford, free buffet, he'd show up in a second, let's be real.
That's all speculation. Well, yeah, I mean, it's clear that this gentleman is intelligent person. I mean, he's been able to make a lot of money just from like screwing with people's MySpace accounts. So it doesn't.
I don't feel bad for
and I'm sure he's all over the place. Clearly, he's a DJ. He's this. He's that. He opens up a nightclub, whatever. But I think he's lying. I think he just didn't want to come to court. I don't know. So apparently, the Spam King has been dethroned.